Welcome to the June 2nd, 2025 Pros Commission meeting. Secretary Vickers, please call the roll.
Commissioner Oler,
Here.
Commissioner Moran,
Here.
Commissioner Garland,
Here.
Vice Chair Pinkstaff.
Here.
Thank you, and let it be noted that Chair Moran is not here tonight, and Chair Cook is not here tonight, and Youth Commissioner Colson is not here either.
Okay, let's go to the public communications portion of the agenda. This portion of the meeting is reserved for comment on items not on the agenda. Under the Brown Act, the Commission cannot act on items raised during public communications, but may respond briefly to statements made or questions posed, question clarification, or refer the action to staff. Does any member of the public wish to speak on an item not on the agenda? At this time, I'll ask the Secretary if there are any members of the public who would like to provide comments. See none, we'll get to the consent calendar. Next on the agenda is a consent calendar. Does any commissioner have a question on the consent calendar item? Nope. Okay, does any members of the public wish to provide public comment on the consent calendar item? None. Secretary Vickers, are there any members of the public who would like to provide comments?
There are not.
Okay. Next on the agenda is...
Just before you all call roll, just ensure we all approve the consent calendar. So, Commissioner Oler,
Yes.
Commissioner Moran,
Yes.
Commissioner Garland,
Yes.
and Vice Chair Pinkstaff.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, next is approve of minutes from the pros meeting on April 7th, 2025.
I suggest we approve the minutes of the April 7th Pros Commission meeting. Seconded.
All right.
Thank you. I was out of order there earlier, so now I'll call roll. Thank you. That's why we shouldn't do this every 2 months. It'd be a lot easier. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Oler,
Yes.
Commissioner Moran,
Yes.
Commissioner Garland,
Yes.
and Vice Chair Pinkstaff.
Yes.
Thank you.
This is fast. So next is consideration on the agenda. There are two items on the agenda. First is a recommend amendments to 11-1.516 bicycles and skateboards municipal code. And the second presentation is a Walnut Creek Parks and Open Space update by Mr. Vickers.
Good evening, Commissioners. For the record, my name is Mike Vickers, Assistant Public Works Director for the City of Walnut Creek. And I know we've been talking about this. The public have been talking about e-bikes and the municipal code for many years now, probably before COVID, when e-bikes really started hitting the market back in 17 and 18, and certainly became popular right around COVID as more people were enjoying the outdoor activities. So we have a recommended proposed municipal code that I'm going to share with you here in just a few minutes. It was part of your package. I'll go through the presentation, and then we'll open it up for clarifying questions, and then give the community an opportunity to speak publicly about this, and then we'll bring it back for comments. So I'll get started. I wasn't planning on reading this word for word, but I think it's best just to ensure that we're all on the same page. And I'm going to use this monitor because that one is just a little too far. So the current municipal code 11-1.516 bicycles and skateboards. Bicycles. All sections of this code and the state vehicle code pertaining to the use and maintenance of bicycles shall be enforced in city parks. No person shall ride or operate a bicycle within a park in a negligent, unsafe, reckless manner, or in a you know what, I'm going to actually read from this. It's going to be easier. Sorry. It's twisting my neck here. In a negligent or unsafe, reckless manner, or in any way that endangers the life, limb, or property of any persons. No person shall ride at a speed greater than the reasonable or prudent, having due regard for weather, visibility, and other trail and road users in the surface and width of the trail of the road, and in no event at a speed which endangers the safety of any person's property or in excess of the post bicycle speed limits. No person shall ride on a single track hiking or or horseback trail unless specifically posted. No person shall ride in any open space areas, including but not limited to open space hillsides, valleys, creeks, creek beds, drainage areas, ridge tops, unless specifically posted as open for bicycle use. Bicycles are permitted on paved trails, paved bicycle trails, unpaved graded roads over 8 feet, unless otherwise posted. Skateboards. No person shall ride a skateboard within any park except those areas specifically designated and posted for skateboarding by the director. Okay, so that's the current. The proposed, which is quite a bit longer, I'll go ahead and jump into that. So this is the proposed amended municipal code for 11-1516, bicycles, e-bicycles, scooters, and skateboards. Bicycles. This section of the code and the California Vehicle Code pertaining to the use and maintenance of bicycles shall be enforced in city parks and open space areas. For the purpose of this section, bicycle is defined as any 2- or 3-wheeled vehicle propelled by the use of human power. Bicycle includes road bikes, mountain bikes, BMX bikes, and other similar devices. Electric bicycles, known as e-bikes, shall have the definition set forth in the California Vehicle Code. Class 1 e-bicycles are low-speed pedal assist and require pedaling for assistance from an electric motor. Class 2 e-bicycles have a low-speed throttle and allow for pedal assist but do not require pedaling for assistance from the electric motor. Class 1 and 2 bicycles, e-bicycles, are permitted in parks and open space areas as set forth below. No person shall ride or operate a bicycle within a park in a negligent, unsafe, or reckless manner or in any way that endangers the life, limb, or property of persons. No person shall ride at a speed greater than a reasonable or prudent, having due regard for weather, visibility, other trail or road uses, and other surfaces and the surface and width of a trail or a road, and in no event at the speed which endangers the safety of persons or property, or in excess of the posted bicycle speed limits. Bicycles may not exceed the lesser of the posted speed limit or 15 miles per hour in any park or open space area. No person shall ride on a single track hiking or horseback trail unless specifically posted as open to bicycle use. No person shall ride cross-country in any open space area, including but not limited to open space hillsides, valleys, creeks, creek beds, drainage areas, and ridge tops unless specifically posted as open for bicycle use. Bicycles are only permitted on paved roads, paved trails, and unpaved graded roads over 8 feet in width unless otherwise posted. Bicycles must travel in a single file when passing others and in a single file on the right side of the trail when it turns, when it's at a blind corner, or when being passed. Class 1 e-bicycles are permitted on all trails where regular bicycles are allowed. Class 2 e-bicycles are permitted only on paved trails. Class 3 bicycles are not permitted in any park or open space areas except upon public roads. Last but not least, skateboards. No person shall ride a skateboard within any park except in the areas specifically designed and posted for skateboards by the director. Electrically motorized scooters and electrically motorized boards. Electrically motorized scooters means any two-wheeled device that has handlebars, has a floorboard that is designed to be stood upon when riding, and is powered by an electric motor. Electrically motorized boards means a wheeled device with a floorboard designed to be stood upon and is not greater than 60 inches in depth and 18 inches wide as defined in the municipal code or in the vehicle code. Electrically motorized scooters and boards are permitted on paved trails only and subject to all requirements of the California Vehicle Code governing the use and the operation. Every person operating an electrically motorized board is required to wear a properly fitted and fastened bicycle helmet. No person shall ride or operate an electrically motorized scooter or board in a negligent, unsafe, or reckless manner or in any way that endangers the life or limb or property of any person. No person shall ride or operate an electrically motorized scooter or board at a speed greater than is reasonable or prudent, having due regard for weather, visibility, other trail and road users, and the surface and width of the trail or the road, and in no event at a speed which endangers the safety of persons or property or in excess of posted bicycle speed limits or 15 miles per hour, whichever is lower. Gasoline-operated scooters or boards are not permitted in the open space, parks or open space. Whew. So I put this slide up here because I wanted to let you know that Class 3 bikes are regulated for roads. They're not regulated for trails by any means, and the city's police department oversees that, enforces the California Vehicle Code, which the Class 3 bikes are enforced under. In terms of the parks and open space, it is our rangers that enforce the rules. And from time to time, we certainly engage with the PD. We also engage with Fish and Wildlife wardens, who are strong partners of ours and always available when the rangers need that assistance. This is a flyer that PD has put together I think over the last year or two, just to help educate people that are out in the roads. I'm sure many of us have seen youngsters, maybe people that are driving these probably Class 3 bikes out in the roads at pretty high speeds. I seen one just the other day, and it was pretty alarming. And so I know that PD is working diligently to educate the community, and we're going to piggyback on their work that they've already put in and partner with them on this flyer. So in terms of safety tips, pretty clear. Wear a helmet, be visible, obey traffic laws, use proper hand signals. And when you're riding on the trails, whether it's the paved trails or the unpaved trails, just trail etiquette, reaching out. Sometimes people have bells, which are super helpful, but, staying to the far side. Sometimes people walk on the right, sometimes people walk on the left. If you're coming up behind that person, you should be on the opposite side of the trail as that person, and you should be calling out. Letting people know that you're coming and riding at an appropriate speed for that particular trail tread or that area that you're in. The bikes are described here, the different types of classes. Class 1 is low speed pedal assist, not exceeding 20 miles an hour. Class 2 is very similar, but it has a throttle. but does not exceed 20 miles an hour. And then Class 3 has a speedometer and can excel up to 28 miles per hour and is allowed only on roads, not on pathways. And the chart there below describes a little bit better, and then there's obviously the laws and the codes here on the right-hand side. So this is about wrapping up my presentation. So in terms of next steps, I'm here before this body to get your feedback and input, give the community an opportunity to provide some information as well. I'm going to take your feedback, your questions or comments back to the traffic engineering team and also back to PD. If there's anything significant that changes between tonight and when I meet with these other two departments, I'll certainly come back for a second reading with the commission to give you an opportunity to further vet or weigh in on the next step. So assuming all goes well, we get some good information tonight, we can take that to both the departments. We're clear to move forward. We'll take this on to City Council and ask for their approval and formal adoption. If we get to that stage, once it's approved, we will start our public outreach plan, which, like I said, will dovetail on what PD's done in terms of that flyer. We'll be installing lots of signage at kiosks and trailheads and throughout the paved trail system, informing individuals of the new code. We'll be sharing the information on all of our social media platforms. And then in terms of community education, it's what the Rangers, part of the big responsibility of the Rangers is to enforce and educate the community on new rules and regulations and ensure that people are following those guidelines. And as I mentioned, we'll work with PD to make sure that we're getting out a unified message. So commissioner action for tonight was to hear the first reading of the amended 11-1-516 bicycles, e-bicycles, scooters, and skateboard municipal code and provide feedback and comments. And Vice Chair, I will turn it over to you for questions.
Questions from the commissioners? Commissioner Older. Oh.
I have a few questions. When this was being developed, did you consider what other open space managers are doing? East Bay Parks seems very similar to what they've done with the Class 1 and 2. But state parks and Mid-Peninsula may be a little different. I don't know. Can you just explain kind of how you came up with this recommendation?
Yeah, so we worked very closely with our staff and with the city attorney's office. Vetted all three of the municipal codes that you're referring to, state parks, Mid-Penn, and East Bay. And like a lot of our policies in the open space, we typically lean to some of these other organizations where their sole focus is open space and parks, so that we're not reinventing the wheel. A lot of these things have already been vetted through several of their board meetings and supervisors, and we chose, as you pointed out, Commissioner Garland, we're pretty much in line with the East Bay Regional Parks bicycle municipal code.
And then kind of a follow-up to that, but is there ability to modify this in practice, like once people have this ability out in the open space, for example, a hawk is nesting and the bikes are noisy. Are there going to be closures for seasonal issues? Are the normal management practices in the watershed, in the open space, still going to be able to be happening, even though now a code is going to say you can come in and do this? It does say where posted if it's not like a large, paved or fire type road. So I just want to make sure we have the ability to continue to manage the open spaces for some of their other equally important purposes, like habitat management and things like that.
Yeah, it's a great comment. And I mean, e-bikes have been in the open space, and scooters and other electric devices have been in the open space for a number of years now. And so does that mean we won't get any more? Probably we will see more over time. And it's pretty clear in the municipal code that we do have, actually, the Public Works Director has the authority to make modifications and changes on a temporary or more permanent basis. And so, back to your example, if we found that there was a wildlife den, fox den or coyote den or something along those lines, and it was potentially being impacted by some of the uses, whether it's just pedestrian use or vehicle or bicycle, we absolutely have the right to reroute those areas and close those areas down when needed.
Thank you, Mr. Vickers. Couple questions for you. Just as you were finishing up with the brochure that the police department had distributed, I was reading, perfect, that the manufacturer label, that e-bikes must have a manufacturer label with their designated class, top assisted speed, and motor wattage listed. So do we know what that looks like? I mean, is that something that's very obvious to a park ranger if one of our rangers would stop hypothetically an e-bike or a scooter or something to check? Have you seen those?
Yes. Yeah, and they are very visible.
Very visible. Okay.
Yep.
Good to know. Couple other questions. I liked Commissioner Garland's questions around other usages. I know that since part of the open space is managed by us, that is in the Concord city limits, then I'm sure we would have to coordinate with them on the Lime Ridge portion that's in Concord as well. I know you do that. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you for bringing that up, because they'll also get a look. We've communicated about this, but they'll also get your feedback as well. Yeah.
Okay. Then I wanted to confirm, I think you started to address it at the end of your comments, but I wanted to confirm the formal process for changing the municipal code.
In which way? Do you mind?
That would change the code relative to the language around e-bikes and e-scooters and boards.
So what's the process from this point moving forward?
Yes.
Yeah.
And the approval, authority, that type of thing.
Okay. So like many projects and presentations that we come to the Pros Commission, we're asking for you to accept, modify, provide feedback, those types of things. So I know that there's likely going to be, this being the first reading and this being the first time we've had an opportunity, there's probably going to be some good suggestions that are going to come out of this meeting, whether it's suggestions from the public, suggestions from the commissioners. And so we'll take that information back. As I mentioned, I'll share it with the two different departments. And if there isn't anything of significant change in this standard language, I would take that to the city council and do a first reading for the city council. And if the city council was comfortable with the language, they would approve at that point. And city council has the approval authority to make that approval. Commission is that can accept the document but not officially approve it.
Thank you. Just one other question I had relates to probably one of the biggest concerns around safety. And my question is whether we have any data that discusses either safety of e-bike usage in terms of to the non-riders, those that might be passed or challenged on a trail or any other property, and the safety to the drivers of the electric vehicles, as well as whether there are any cases of e-bikes, et cetera, causing fires in external environments. Do we have any data?
So good questions. In regards to starting fires or the batteries blowing up or whatever we might hear, I have checked in. I haven't done it in the last couple of years, but in '23 I checked in with the the fire protection, Contra Costa Fire Protection coordinator or technician and asked this specific question, and she was unaware of any electric bikes starting any sort of wildfires in her area. I didn't reach outside of that. I can certainly do it. There's probably more information now since 23, so I'll definitely dive into that. In regards to personal injury or causing personal injury or damage, so to speak, we have not received the city Walnut Creek staff, park and open space staff, my team has not received any complaints or has been notified of any injuries specifically caused by the operation of an e-bike, whether they were riding on it or somebody else was. In terms of PD, I haven't asked that question. I can follow up with PD, and I can also reach out to some of our neighboring agencies to find out if they're seeing a rise in the number of injuries due to e-bikes.
Thank you.
Can I share one more thing Commissioner Oler had brought up? In terms of visibility with the stickers that the manufacturers require based on speed and what is it, speed and category, it is visible, but it's not as visible if you were to pass, this far away on a trail. You can probably identify the sticker, but you couldn't necessarily read it, obviously. And the difference with the Class 1 and 2 is really the throttle. The bikes, even the Class 3 bikes, you can get confused almost looking like Class 1 because they're trying to make them reduce the weight, and so the technology is changing all the time. And so it's not that a ranger is going to be able to spot exactly what an e-bike, a Class 1 and a Class 2 is from a certain distance. It's until they can see the throttle, if somebody's hand is on the handlebars or covering it up or something along those lines. It's going to be like a lot of things in the open space. We're going to ask people to follow the rules, and we're going to remind them and educate them when we have that personal contact.
I have a question regarding the effective, when the revised regulations or municipal code will become effective. Is it immediately after adoption by the city council?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
upon adoption.
this is either my first or my second municipal code update. So I know that there's a grace period where we wouldn't be out, we'd be out educating right away, putting out that public outreach and doing those types of things. But I think the enforcement, if needed, wouldn't come for a few months. And we would lean on PD and say, hey, what's the appropriate time before, if we have reoccurring events with certain individuals that we need PD's assistance, that type of thing.
Okay, that was my second question in terms of enforcement. So will that be mostly by the PD or by the rangers?
So enforcement will continue to be done by the rangers.
Okay.
And if we're at a position, or if we're in a position where, the same rangers talking to the same two or three individuals, and it's repetitive, and we feel it's reached the level that we need assistance from our PD, we'll reach out to PD at that time.
So is there like a penalty? There will be like a penalty assessed as if it's repeated, like offense or?
Yeah, so there could be a monetary penalty.
Okay.
We would hope that with PD out there as a presence, that the individual would take it a little bit more seriously if they're not already taking it seriously. We're not out there to penalize the users by any means. Yeah.
Okay. Right. Thanks.
Thank you, Mike. Could you just maybe, for the benefit of people watching at home, maybe talk about the outreach plans that might come to, to view if we're, updating the code, and now there's people talking about e-bikes in the wind and so forth. Just generally, what's the plan to get the word out, I guess?
Yeah, so back in, it's been a while now. So in 16 or 17, we started a Safe Trail Initiative program, and it's evolved. It kind of ebbs and flows as we see different trends happening. And at certain trailheads, you'll see we've gone to use different colors to talk about trail etiquette, so it kind of draws your attention. And so we'll be accused of sign littering, because there will be a lot of signs. You know, we've got to do our very best to pass the information along. We know where the most amount of bikes enter and exit. We also know the times of the day, especially on our trail system, because a lot of people are commuting now to BART and just to work. So we know where those targeted areas are, and through social media, city's website, our public information officer has a real good handle on getting all that information out. But it's going to take some time. And it's, you know, we're going to have to get creative. Just putting a standard sign up on a fence near a trailhead doesn't necessarily do it. Sometimes you got to put them on A-frames or barricades that you almost got to go around it, you know, so it draws your attention. And we're going to have to be talking about it at a lot of these meetings. And I know that the city council and the police department have been talking about the amount of usage on our roads. And so this subject is talked about, if not at every meeting, every other meeting. And once we get this code, it'll be one more opportunity for them to share that information.
Thank you. I think that's going to be really helpful going forward, especially if there's, as you say, possibly more people in the open space now. Can you give me an example? I'm just curious. The Class 2 bikes are allowed on paved trails? But the majority of the trails in the open space are, you know, the single track or the fire trails, right? Those
Yep.
are not paved. I'm just trying to jog my memory of where would you ride a Class 2 bike in the parks?
Yeah, mostly we have our Ignacio Canal Trail, which is about an 8-mile loop, really starts close to Heather Farm, does a big loop, ends back up over in North Lime Ridge, and then you get on the canal trail. That's the paved trail system. The Class 2 bicycles are not allowed in the open space.
Mm-hmm. Because they're not paved.
Correct.
My last thing that I just wanted to, I think what's helpful is a lot of the language in the update speaks to calling out, being safe. There's a speed limit, right? So we're adding e-bikes to the code because it simply didn't say e-bikes before, pretty much, right?
Correct.
But there's also stuff in here that I think is helpful. Because to your point, you know, a lot of this is just going to be how the community can work together, right? And if there's a couple bad actors, then we can deal with them. But the safety and the rules of the road, so to speak, I think will go a long way. As long as people understand, like, there's a right way to do it and a wrong way to do it, you know?
Yeah, agreed. And I've probably spent most of my time, and maybe a lot of the questions have been around the paved trail system and the open space. We get a lot of bicycle use in our parks. And so making sure that we're signing at playgrounds where kids are coming and parents are coming so that they can understand the change in a municipal code is going to be important too. It's not just in our open space. We have a lot of trails throughout our park system.
Bear with me. I think I had one more question for you. Are there any, well, there's a line in there about how the bikes are only allowed on wide trails, otherwise noted. Is that kind of an ebb and flow, or right now there's the primary use for the bikes are on the fire trails, not single track, right?
That's correct.
Could you just talk about that just for
Yeah. So you know, there's several single track trails where bicycles are authorized to be on, and we typically refer to them as connector trails. If you know Sugarloaf very well, Sugarloaf is mostly an 8-foot wide road, and then there's these little courts that come out all the way around it that have single tracks, so you can get from the end of the court out to the main trail system. And they're named in the map, but they're really referred to as connector trails. I mean, the Timberleaf Trail is a trail that we've all talked a lot about over the last 4 or 5 years, and that is a connector trail. It gets you into the park, it gets you up to a specific area, it's not very long. And so there's I was going to throw a number out there, but I'd be wrong. You know, there's probably a dozen single track trails that are multi-use in nature. The one that we were talking about most recently, which is kind of unnamed at this point, but you understand the area, the Corey area that I was referring to, that is a single track trail that's been in existence for, 30 plus years. So that one is not a connector. And I can't think of too many others that are not connector trails where bikes are authorized. That doesn't mean that they're not being used, but where they're authorized.
Well, and that's where the public outreach and the enforcement comes in.
Yes, correct.
I'm good with my questions. Thanks.
Any other questions from the commissioners? None? All right. Does any member of the public wish to provide public comments at this time? As a reminder, you have 2 minutes to provide your comments.
Vice Chair Pinkstaff and Commissioners. I'm Kym Smith. I'm the president of the Walnut Creek Open Space Foundation, and I thank Mike and his staff for doing a good job on rewriting this ordinance. And I thank the city for allowing us to give feedback, and I hope that some of this will be helpful going forward to the commission and also to Mike and his staff. In description of electrically motorized scooters and motorized boards, we would recommend that that's made a little bit more generic, because we're starting to see other types of vehicles, such as electrical off-road unicycles that travel at high rates of speed. So we'd recommend that description either be made more generic, if you could pass that around. If that description could be made more generic, or that type of thing be added that could be useful going forward. We also recommend in section A, number 3, concerning bicycles using using single file. That particular provision was a little bit unclear, we felt. And then finally, and this is something that Mike and his team did not have available, was the results from our 2024 trail survey, in which we asked our trail users, whether electric vehicles or electric bikes should be permitted in the open space. I'm sorry, Mike, that I didn't get this to you earlier, but I wasn't aware that this was going to be discussed. However, we found that 49% don't want e-bikes anywhere. 31% want them only on 6-foot or wider tracks, and there's only 20% where mountain bikes are allowed. So if electric bikes are allowed anywhere mountain bikes are, if mountain bikes are using single track trails, actually I get 10, don't I? Because I represent a organization.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay.
Sorry, that was my fault.
All right, sorry, we said that too.
Well, anyway, so if the electric bikes can go anywhere a bicycle can, then in the case of the single tracks, 80% of the users of the open space are going to be disappointed. I mean, there's 80% of the people that responded, and we had almost 1,000 people respond. So 80% of the people would feel like that was not the right thing to do. So I just wanted to provide that information. In general, the foundation would recommend against mechanized traffic of any kind on single-track trails to preserve the user experience for everyone and to reduce traffic on trails which are in areas which have the greatest impact on both flora and fauna. By adding electric bikes to a single-track trail, you're adding that much more traffic, which is already is impacting those trails pretty severely. So, food for thought. Yeah. And thank you for your time.
Excuse me, Chaim, could you repeat the survey results?
Sure. About 40, we had 958 responses, and of the 958, we had 71 people that actually that answered that particular question. So, but I think it's pretty random. So I think it probably represents the whole population. However, it was 19.72% that said that electric bikes should be allowed anywhere a mountain bike is allowed. There were 30.99% that said yes, but only on the wider 6 to 8 foot wide tracks, which would play well. I mean, for someone who is elderly and has an electric bike who wanted to get out, if they stayed on the paved roads or the gravel roads, it would certainly satisfy them, and it would also satisfy that 31%. Finally, the ones who said that they didn't feel that the electric bikes belonged anywhere, and the phrase, the way the question was asked, it was specific for electric bikes. It didn't say electric vehicles, but I'm assuming it would also be electric skateboards. But 49.3 said that they didn't want any motorized vehicles in the open space at all. And I could, if the council, if the commissioners wish, I can send you the stats. I could pass this around now.
Yeah, Chaim, if you don't mind emailing that to me as well, and then
Yeah.
I can forward it on to the commission.
Okay, that's what I'll do then.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, sure. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you for your time. Thank you for the extra time.
Any other comments from the public?
Vice Chair, Big Staff, Commissioners, good evening. I'm Elizabeth Hudson. I am also on the Walnut Creek Open Space Foundation Board. I'm an equestrian, and I'm going to be speaking as an equestrian tonight. The e-bikes have done nothing to help the equestrians. We're seeing more bikes that go faster in places that they used to have to go up the hill slowly, which kind of gave us time to judge each other. Now they come up the hills as fast as they go down the hills. So aside from the fact that that is not really a benefit to the equestrian sport, I would ask that in this new wording for the bike policy, there be something included that the bike should stop and ask the rider what they need to do. The one that sort of flagged it for me was when it said the bike should stay to the right when being passed. It depends on the trail. If the trail drops off on the right, it's one thing. If the trail drops off on the left, you want to put the horse and the bike so that the horse does not spook and go over the edge. So if there could be some wording inserted that a bicycle needs to, I mean, right now they're supposed to yield to the horse, they're supposed to stop and ask. If that could be reinforced, because hard rules don't work with live animals. The rider will be able to assess if there's a trip hazard, a drop-off that's too steep. They know their horse better, and so that rule about stop and ask the rider has been it made a lot of people feel safe when they actually do it. And I'm happy to explain horse behavior if you would like, but they are live animals, and they're wonderful animals. There was an article in the paper today about how they are sobering people up in Kentucky. So they have many, many purposes. So please keep the equestrian sport in the forefront with the language and encourage that they check with the rider.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Sabine Krober. I live in the Woodlands neighborhood, so close to the Lime Ridge quarry area. And I'm a hiker, a dog walker. I also bike. I biked here. And my main concern with this whole concept is, so for now you're forbidding the bikes on the single file trails. And I'm worried that in the future you get the idea to just widen the trails so they are allowed there. And there is this rumor, I don't know if it's an actual plan, that in the Lime Ridge Quarry area there's a social trail, and the plan is to change this to a wider multi-purpose trail. And I think that specific area has a really high level of biodiversity, and I don't think that would be a good spot to have a multi-use trail. I think it's wonderful as it is. You could change it, maybe have an educational trail, but I hike that area a lot. My husband is a bird watcher, so and the city of Walnut Creek, in their original master plan for that area, recognized that value and said it should only be used for passive uses, like horseback riding, actually, hiking, picnicking, and not biking. That's it.
Thank you. Any other public comments that Secretary Vickers you've received?
No, we haven't
All
seen
right.
any.
So now we're going to the second presentation on Walnut Creek Parks and Open Space Update.
So can we just get some final comments on this item, just so I know what you guys want to see, if you want me to return and kind of summarize what you'd like me to do moving forward?
You did agree that you would provide us more information or updated information on fire issues, potential fire issues, as well as what other nearby open space operators have experienced in terms of trail interactions and safety issues that might be related to that.
Agreed. Additional data. Yeah.
Correct, yeah. And I would just like to say, if it was just on the all the trails other than single track, I would be I would have many fewer reservations. But having, just on the wide paved trail, the canal trail, those guys whiz by, and you're just like, wow. And I'm just concerned that some of those single track, the connectors, and I'm talking about in particular, they're actually very, very narrow and they're very tight, and there's not really any place to go. And, bikes are already a problem, and now e-bikes, which can potentially be going faster. And I don't know if they're as easy to maneuver and stop and all that. They probably are, but I don't know. It just makes me, more people may want to now decide they can ride their bike because they can bring their e-bike there. And I don't know. I'm just, is there a way to not allow them at all on the single tracks, even the connector? I mean, there are multiple ways into the open space. The connector trails tend to be more convenient from certain areas, but I mean, we could potentially try some additional limitations or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't mind, I'll just follow up on that question. It's difficult, right? Because as I was demonstrating earlier with Commissioner Older, from a certain distance, you can't tell if it's an e-bike or a regular bike, if it's a class 1, because there is no throttle. And it is, oftentimes they might have a crank that's a little bit bigger, or you might be able to see a battery along one of the shafts or something along those lines. But, as the technology continues to change and get better, you're going to have a hard time telling the difference between a class 1 bicycle and a traditional bicycle. You're not going to be able to see someone going by and saying that person's on a bike, maybe other than some speed. Once in a while, they're going fairly fast and they're barely pedaling, and so you'd be like, oh, okay, that's a pedal assist type bicycle. So we can give it some thought. Appreciate your comment.
No other comments at this time, other than I think it's just appropriate to follow the process so we can get all the appropriate input, excuse me, from the various groups that you'll have to engage with, and we'll get further insight in terms of how to proceed.
The only note I have is, I'm not a lawyer, but I take Keim's point about, today there's people on the unicycles, and tomorrow who knows what they're going to be on, right? So the language may be fine now, but the possibility that next year's hot new thing is going to be something that was a little harder to define. Does that make sense?
Yeah, are you referring to his comment that he showed the image of, like, of the unicycle type? and
Yeah, I had
different
thought
types of
about that, too.
devices? Yeah.
You see those guys everywhere.
Yeah.
On the streets, not necessarily in the open space, but
Yeah, and I don't, when Keim shared that, I don't think you could describe that as having a floorboard that is intended
Right.
on staying on. So there may be a better way to word that, as Keim mentioned, maybe a little bit more general. Yeah.
I'm interested in seeing more information on like the tiered approach to outreach and enforcement. Like outreach comes first, and a little bit more on the time duration, so we get the word out. Especially, I see a lot more kids riding these e-bikes now. They need to know what the rules are first before enforcement comes in.
Thank you.
All right, are we ready to move on to the second item on the agenda? Walnut Creek Parks and Open Space update.
So I'm going to roll through this pretty quick. I hope you weren't, when we pushed out the staff report, I was thinking, okay, commissioners are going to be smiling when they see this, because I've given a lot of updates in the last couple months over several of these projects. So I'm going to move through those pretty quickly. There is one that I'm going to spend a little bit more time on, and that is a 10-year trail improvement plan that was vetted through a subcommittee back in 17 or 18. So I'll spend a little bit more time on that one. But I do want to provide you with a number of updates. We've got a lot of things going on in Public Works as a whole, through engineering and also through operations. And so we're excited about all these things coming together. This is a really exciting time for all of us. So this project, all the details here, the project for the most part, not for the most part, the project is on time and on budget. And the project is scheduled to be completed in mid-July. When PG&E comes out to flip the switch, we don't have exact control over, but we've had really good communication with PG&E and feel that hopefully by the end of summer, PG&E will be flipping that switch. So the benefit, we're in the summertime right now, and we're getting the most daylight throughout the year. So we feel really good about this project. Sorry for the font here and some of the overlapping, but this is an image of Heather Farm, Ball Field 1. We have a camera up there where this picture was taken, a time-lapse camera. So at the end of this project, we'll be able to share, what took place over the 6 or 7 month project. So we're looking forward to seeing that. Matt Bollender had set this up for us. So the synthetic turf project is currently on schedule and it is on budget, looking to be completed near the first part of November. And the second image, the second picture you see there on the left is a grant entryway that we've been working with the soccer club on and through engineering, and our consultant has designed this entryway. And so we're putting this out right now for bid. You can see it's got a number of plaques, a number of opportunities for donors to be able to get their name up there and show support for the project. And then the image there on the bottom where you see that brown area is basically demonstrating where donor bricks will potentially be installed. And the soccer club is trying to raise the funding for their commitment of $1.5 million into this project. And this is one of the opportunities, fundraising opportunities that they're providing. So we're in good shape here at Heather Farm. Phase 1 of the new Aquatic and Community Center project. Exciting times. The project went out to bid at the beginning of May. We recently got our bids. We recently got the bids back at the end of last week. We still have to vet the bids and discuss next steps. We do plan on going to council on June 17th to award or to pass on this project or to pass on the bids. And then if we do move forward with the award of the project, it's currently scheduled to start in July. And phase one, just so everybody's understanding, is really the left side of the screen, the areas that you're seeing in green there. The top is the expansion of the nature lake. That soil from the expansion of the nature lake will go to that green area to the left of that, which is basically an open field, and there'll be 3 or 4 feet lift there to use up the remainder of the soil. And then, as you can kind of see there in the concrete pond, it's going to be reduced to a figure 8. We're losing about 16,000 square feet. And that the 16,000 square feet is the portion that is in yellow, shown in yellow. That's the area we're losing. And you can kind of see the new green shoreline that identifies what the shape of the pond will be in the future. And then obviously the new buildings and facilities there are highlighted in blue, which is what we're calling phase 2. Which is scheduled to go out to bid later this year and start construction January, February of 26. So right around the corner. I can't believe it's already beginning of June. Time moves fast as my hair continues to grow. Bramhall desilting project. Corey shared this project with you in the past. There's a few things going on out in the open space. One of the projects we just completed, Corey and his team completed, which was the expansion of the Indian Creek Trail, which is a fantastic project. And then this is a little bit more detail on the Bramhall project. Bramhall, for those of you who don't know, Audrey Bramhall was one of the founding members of the committee that put the R8 bond together back in '72, and this pond was named after her. So the picture on the right-hand side, which Zentner Planning and Ecology designed for us, you can see the body of water. We're looking to desilt this pond and down to 3 or 4 feet. We don't know exactly where the original clay or the original base is, so we'll have to do some testing once we get authorization from Fish and Wildlife, which we've already applied for. So you see the body of water, and just to the left, you see this kind of blue pathway, almost looks like a stream. It's not. That's a hardened crossing. There's not a culvert there, and so when the pond fills up and overflows, it'll go through what we've started developing is these hardened crossings, which is basically the water running over, a rock trail system, so that it no longer erodes the trail out. So you guys have seen some of this, but we're in the final stages of getting the permits from Fish and Wildlife. I've met with Fish and Wildlife representatives out there. They think this is a great project. They were very complimentary about the fact that we're doing all we can to conserve as much water as we can, so we get a little bit later in the year, provides more water source for the critters and also for wildlife. Civic and Walden Playground, we've got our first upcoming public outreach, which is an event that Walnut Creek Downtown puts on. It used to be called First Wednesdays. It's not First Wednesdays anymore, but it's in a Wednesday this month. I think it's in the middle of the month. We'll be out there toting our signs and asking for feedback, and then we'll be scheduled to show up at a farmer's market here in the near future. And then this summer, we will be reaching out and actually staged out at the parks during the daytime when we know they're most active with the parents and kids out there at both Walden and Civic, start getting that feedback from the community. The Urban Forest Grant, which is a project I was really excited about. I'm still partially excited about it. We were awarded the funding back in November. With the transition in the federal government, that funding was put on pause. They reached out to us about a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, and they said, hey, you're still awarded the project, but there's some things have changed. You're now required to match the grant at 100%. Which was a 0% when we went into it. So a little challenging. We have a $100,000 project, which is why we requested $100,000 to do an urban forest master plan, which is a long-term, 30 to 50-year plan. And so we have some questions back into the USDA about modifying the overall dollar amount. maybe reducing the dollar amount so we wouldn't have to match as much. And they're checking with the grant writers to see if that's going to be acceptable. So we're still kind of in this flux period. We don't know where it's going to go at this point. And in Sutherland, everybody's familiar with the Sutherland pilot program that we put on for some traffic mitigations for those neighbors there at Sutherland and Virginia Court. Project started, the pilot program started on the 8th. For the city's part of it, we were, we met with the county, the neighbors, the Open Space Foundation contributed a lot of time to finding some benefits and some mitigation opportunities. And so the city closed the parking lot at the east end of Sutherland. The county provided A-frames. We provided some signage for those A-frames along with placards. And so we closed everything down for the most part on March 8th. The city opened up the parking lot on May 3rd because we wanted to see what impact it might have if just the small parking lot was open. And then the county just recently directed the neighbors to pull the barricades just after Memorial Day, in which the county will pick those barricades up and house them. We have not debriefed yet. We will debrief with the city and the county, and then we'll debrief with the whole committee sometime this summer, and we'll follow up on next steps with the commission. But overall, successful program. We was successful program for the residents of Sutherland and Virginia. We had a lot of feedback from the community, both the county and the city did. There's some frustrated individuals out there, as you can imagine, right? It's like with most things. But there, the impact was pretty heavy through the 23 and 24 season, the blooming seasons out there. And some of the feedback you get is, you don't think about it until you're actually listening. But we heard from a number of individuals that live in community pool areas. As many of you know, Walnut Creek has a lot of neighborhood pools, community pools, and people were basically raising their hand and saying, "Hey, wait a minute, they have pool meets at these community pools 10 to 15 times a year, and our neighborhoods are completely overwhelmed with noise from the speakers, people driving and parking all over the place. Where's our relief? When do we get our barricades, and when do we get our placards?" And so it's things that we didn't think about or discuss going into this process. But these whether you're going out and because you want to see the flowers, you're going out and hike, or you're going out and doing a recreational activity and swimming. These things have impacts in lots of different ways, and so we're going to have to vet this, and work to figure out what the next steps are. So there's no easy fix. Okay, so moving into the 10-year trail improvement plan. This was a program that took place back in 17, 18, and it included 2 commissioners, 2 Park and Recreation commissioners, included 1 transportation commissioner. Bob Simmons, former council member and mayor, was on the subcommittee, and then we had staff, and we had some members of the Open Space Foundation and some others that participated. And we identified there's about 125 miles of trails, trails in total throughout the city, and that includes the Iron Horse Trail and some other trails that the city doesn't necessarily oversee. But we wanted to survey all the areas and come back as a committee and identify potential opportunities for improvement. And there's this list here, and then there's some other lists I'll get into in just a second. But this was the list that has not got a lot of steam. And so I wanted to bring it back to this commission and chat with you a little bit about this and see if there's 2 or 3 items, maybe more than that, maybe less than that, that we can have a discussion about, and maybe maybe the commission can help reset some of these priorities. As you can see, they're high, medium, and low. If there's some low-hanging fruit, we'd like to discuss that and maybe give some more direction to the Park and Open Space staff on moving forward. So I'll touch base real quick on all these so you have an understanding. Orlando, can you pull up Google Earth as needed? I don't need it right now, but I might if the commissioners have a question on where some of these areas are. So So Pine Creek, the very first one there, let me make sure I got my bearings right. Yeah, so, okay, so I know where I'm at. So for those of you who know where Diablo Shadows is, Pine Creek is that creek that runs right along right along through there. And if you were standing there looking at it, there's a service road on either side of the creek. And the goal here was to open up access, one of those service roads, one side or the other, to open it up for public access. And so kids that are riding their bike, for example, if they live in the Woodlands and they're trying to get over to Northgate, right now they're riding along the sidewalk. Is there an opportunity to open up some of these service roads along Pine Creek? They're gravel roads, but to get them away from traffic and give them a better, maybe potentially a safer area. Or for individuals who are just out walking and don't want to listen to the noise from Oak Grove or from YVR, there is some opportunity here to work with flood control and help get some of these areas opened up. The Ignacio Canal Trail, let me see, install amenities. Yeah. And so, like I mentioned earlier, the Ignacio Canal Trail is about a 7 or 8 mile loop. There was some conversations about, these are the next two, is putting out some signage and some distance markers. We actually developed a map, and I don't know so much about the Iron Horse Trail around here, but where I live in the Dublin-San Ramon area, as you come up to each road crossing, there is a map. It sounds like maybe you've seen them before, and it tells you the distance to get to the next spot, and it tells you what those roads are coming back and forth. And so we thought, hey, maybe there's an opportunity to do that. We actually put together a pretty detailed map. It's probably too detailed for the whole 8 miles. Might need to break it down into sections, and that's something I could bring back and vet with the commission so you guys could get understanding of what I'm talking about. But so with signage, distance markers, maybe putting out some additional benches, and possibly even shade structures in some of these areas. I know that East Bay is starting to do a lot more of that. One of the reasons you're probably scratching your head and saying, well, you don't have a lot of benches and shade structures out there now. Why wouldn't you just do it? And one of the challenges we have is graffiti. It creates more maintenance, right? And it's not like our staff is getting any larger, but maybe there's 4 or 5 areas that we target that are really close to roads, that are easy to service, and we test the waters. We see if these benches are actually going to be impacted through graffiti or whatever the case is. So South Lime Ridge, the Paraiso Trail. Okay, so if you're headed up Valley Vista to the golf course, there's a Paraiso Trail just past, I think Crondelet bought that new, where Crondelet bought that new swimming and soccer field area? So just past there's a row of homes. Behind there's a trail. And if you're coming out of that trail, you're either walking up Valley Vista, headed up towards the golf course, which is east, or you're going to have to walk down, and it's a ways before you get to a sidewalk. And so there was a suggestion at the time to build almost like a crosswalk there so that you get on the golf course side and maybe run a fence. There's about an 8-foot strip between the curb and the fence that separates the golf course property line there, and maybe build a trail along there so that people were safe and they weren't walking in the roads whatsoever. So hopefully you guys can picture that. If not, I can pull some of these images up and give you a better idea. Shell Ridge, same thing. We've received feedback over the years that people aren't using the open space as much as they would like to. They're afraid to get lost. They don't want to go too far, those types of things. Is there an opportunity to put trail markers out there? And so you can identify on the kiosk that the yellow trail is 3.5 miles, and if you follow the yellow trail, it'll take you from the kiosk all the way back to the kiosk. Is there an opportunity to do that? Interpretive signage, we've started installing interpretive signage. We have about 6 signs installed in Shell Ridge today, and we're going to continue to expand that program. It's not cheap. They're about $3,500 a sign. So we're pacing ourselves with the funding that's available. Sugarloaf, for those of you who have been there, near the parking lot, there's a fair amount of older amenities. or historical amenities, and there might be an opportunity to put some more interpretive signage at those areas. And then Shell Ridge at Rock Springs, there was an idea about adding a water fountain, to add a water fountain to get a meter from, what would that be, East Bay Regional? No, East Bay Mud, I believe, is somewhere in the 150 to 200,000 range to get a service over there. So it's not something that we've moved forward with for funding purposes. So the second part of this is cross-agency collaboration. These are pretty big lifts. These are many of these projects have been talked about in the Transportation Commission, as you can imagine, trying to find connectors from BART to the Iron Horse Trail. The second one here is at-grade pedestrian crossings, which I've checked in with our traffic engineering, and it would be very difficult to get this passed through. If you can envision the Broadway extension, if you go down the Broadway extension, there's 2 pedestrian bridges. Basically, it's mostly for students getting to Los Lomas. There was during this process there was a suggestion of opening up the sound wall and having at-grade crossings, so that if somebody's with a stroller or on a bike or something, they could get from one side to the other instead of climbing up over the hills, climbing up the stairs and going over the bridge and coming down the other side. At the speeds that roll through there's a pretty big curve. It'd be very difficult to make that a safe crossing, but that was one of the items that was listed. Walden Road to WCI. So if those of you are familiar with Walden Road, just before you get to Walden Park there, Civic turns into Jones, which eventually you can take a right there. Turns into Oak. You can take a right on Walden. There's the Iron Horse Trail. There was a suggestion to make an additional trail next to it for bikes, so that when the youngsters are walking to WCI, they're not competing with the people that are on bicycles. That's what this was about. And then this is an interesting one. So Los Juncos to Bancroft. I'm not sure how many of you know where Los Juncos is, but if you are, what road is that? So that's Jones Road. Okay, so you're on Civic. Civic turns into Oak. Eventually, you come to Treat. If you pass Treat and you take a right, it kind of puts you into the Pleasant Hill BART area. Los Juncos Road is there, and there was the thought that we could work with BART to run a trail along, not beside the BART tracks, but at the toe of the slope, just inside the fence, that would take you from Los Juncos all the way up to Bancroft. We've checked in with BART on that. We can't do that. BART's not interested in having anybody any closer to tracks than even if it was fenced off. That's just not gonna work in their eyes. Finding better access, bicycle access to Pleasant Hill BART, to the Walnut from Walnut Creek to Concord, challenging just based on property. Lafayette to Walnut Creek, that regional trail connector. People have been talking about that for years. It just comes down to getting the property and getting the funding organized in order to do that. It's a heavy lift. Probably something that Transportation Commission and traffic engineering would be better dealt with. The Ignacio Canal Trail, the paved portion, the tunnel. The suggestion was to double the width of that and bore in a new tunnel so that people could walk side by side. That's about a $10 million project. Heavy lift. The detention basin. This project's possible. Out in front of Northgate High School, there is a paved trail that takes you around to a road called Trails Ending, and it's kind of a cut through for the kids, which eventually gets around to Northgate Road. There's a detention basin out there, and there's an opportunity to take that detention basin or make a trail through that detention basin up through the open space areas that are owned by East Bay Regional or City of Walnut Creek. They're owned by agencies that get you right to the Rangers Gate off of Northgate Road going into Mount Diablo. So there's a possibility of getting a trail through that area to get people quicker to Mount Diablo and get them off the main road as they go up North Gate. Walden, if you were to go out the, let me see, make sure I got that right. Yeah, if you were to go out the back of Walden Park and hit the Iron Horse Trail, you would notice both to the right and to the left, there is a lot of undeveloped land, and there's an opportunity to make a more impactful lineal park in that area, like they've done on the other side of Treat. And then Rudgear, the Rudgear Park and Ride. I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with Rudgear Park and Ride, but as you come off the 680, the Rudgear exit, if you make an immediate right, it puts you in the Park and Ride right there. There was a thought about working with Caltrans to develop a trail that'll take you from the Park and Ride, several switchbacks to get you up into Sugarloaf open space, get you over to the Sugarloaf to Shell Ridge Trail, which eventually gets you to the Mount Diablo Trail. We met with East Bay Regional in this area because they have more experience in building these challenging trail systems. It's an expensive project and would require a big lift from Caltrans in terms of authorizing the use and authorizing people to use the property in a way that isn't currently authorized. It's a big lift. I think it's a good project at the end of the day. It's just expensive and a lot of work, a lot of coordination. Okay, so I'm going to move through this pretty quickly. As many of the previous items were identified, all of these areas were brought to our attention in the different zones. I'm not going to touch on every one of them. You'll see at the very bottom, all of these areas have been addressed, unless we specifically state that they haven't. So parking at Akalani's, North Akalani's, let me see here, recommend removing, clarifying the signage. So this was done. We worked with the HOAs out there to add some public parking in that area. We've clarified the confusion on these trails here so that the signage is better. Beacon Ridge Trail, that is the trail that takes you up to the property that was purchased back in 2010. At the very top of the ridge there was 4 agencies that purchased that property. It's not even on the map, actually. And it's not ideal to hike, but it just, the signage need to be better. It need to be promoted a little bit more. It was really driven by John Muir Land Trust. South Akalani's, if you drive up, I think it's Bacon Way, which is in Pleasant Hill, takes you to the top of South Akalani's. There's 2 empty spots just in front of the gate. That is East Bay Mud's property. We've asked them about signing that property, and they said, we'd love you to sign it, but therefore you're responsible to maintain it in the entry portion into that area. So we'd have to go out and repave it and add some new fencing, remove some shrubs and things along those lines. So we haven't got there yet. That's one of the items which I didn't list as not been completed, but we have reached out to East Bay Mud. We're just not willing to take on the infrastructure impacts to allow people to park there. People park there now. You can get 2 cars in there. It's not an issue. It's just not identified specifically for that trail. Civic Park enhanced the proposed landscaping along the Iron Horse. We were going to address this as part of the Civic Park Master Plan, which we haven't got to, that hopefully will come back in the near future. Another one that I didn't mark correctly. Number 2, the Lime Ridge, the Forgotten Trail. This is the trail that is at the far north end of North Lime Ridge. There's a trail that starts basically down right at the intersection of the Ignacio Canal Trail and the Canal Trail, and it is the part of the California hiking trail that takes you up over Lime Ridge, North Lime Ridge, and dumps you into Concord. That trail comes up periodically. Kime actually sends me some updates once in a while about some potential improvements. They've been talking about paving that trail through the open space, and it kind of ebbs and flows with funding opportunities, I believe. There were some metal structures out there. I haven't dialed in whether or not they're talking about an old trough or not, but there was also some other metal in this area that was cleaned up. It was used as part of our restoration projects. And then there was just some rutting and things along those lines. And I think it was pointed out to me that it might not be Cowell Trail. It might be a name of a different trail. I can't remember. What was the name of that kind? It might be the Cottonwood Trail. I may have that worded incorrectly. Area number 3, South Lime Ridge. This is an interesting one that I'd like to pull up on Google just to kind of show. For those of you who have been using the open space. Yeah, I know. Give us about 35. So we were temporarily, we shut the system down when I got online, so I'm not going to do that again. Welcome back, everybody. I'll just explain this to you, and hopefully you can get an idea of where I'm referring to. But at the very top of the Manzanita Trail in Lime Ridge, which is the highest point. There used to be a cell tower up there that was fenced off, and behind the fenced off area, the biking community created this trail that had been in existence for much longer than 20 years, and they named it Mach 5 Trail, and it was a trail that kind of took you down the spine of the back of the hill there, and so when we removed the cell tower, removed the fencing, we increased the fencing to shut this trail down, and it was really successful. As far as I know, it's not used at all anymore, and there's been a fair amount of restoration and just natural regrowth in that particular area. So we were happy. That was a big lift for us a number of years ago, and that was a pretty successful project. So anyways, that was kind of to share what was there at South Lime Ridge. The Crystal Ranch area, there's a sign. Crystal Ranch is a gated community, and there is one trailhead. I can't remember which road, Oak Knoll Road or something along those lines. That when you pull up or you walk up to that particular area, there's a vehicle access gate that says no trespassing, and then we have a pedestrian gate with a regulatory sign that allows that neighborhood access in and out. And people have talked, or the suggestion was, take off the no trespassing signs. Well, it's really no trespassing for vehicles, and we don't have any authority over what East Bay Mud does, or I think it might be even Contra Costa Fire, what signage they put. But we want to keep it on the map because it's important that emergency services know that this is accessible trail. So Manzanita Trail was similar to some of the other trails that particular year. It really got beat up and was pretty, it was pretty damaged with ruts and those types of things. And at the very top of the Manzanita Trail, there was a set of, if you remember in the past, if you went off to the right, there was a set of stairs that took you down and took you back up again through the help of the, there's a nonprofit trail group, starts with a V. I can't remember the name of the group, but they came out and helped us rebuild a new trail around that area. Vocal group, yeah, it might have been. Thank you, Kime. Shell Ridge, for those of you who are familiar with the La Casa Villa trailhead, it really kicks you into the top of the spine there across the Ridge Trail. It's just gorgeous views up there, and there's a number of benches. We will get some interpretive signs up there. In the future, the Sulphur Creek, Costanoan Trail, there is some difficult sections down there, but we have improved the signage. We've taken care of that. General maintenance. It's just some more erosion and rutting in some of the areas throughout Shell Ridge. So there's an unnamed trail at the very top of Wiggett. That would be the west end. Yeah, I think the west end of Wiggett. Is it south end of Wiggett that stops you there at the gated community? Off to your left, there's a 4 to 6 inch paved trail that takes you down to a bridge, and we've had to make some repairs to those stairs and just make that area safer. And then the Deer Lake Trail, which is a single track trail that takes you down along the Deer Lake itself. It gets a fair amount of unauthorized bike use. There's been a push to authorize bicycles in that area because it connects you to the Costanoan Trail. Yeah, connects you to one of the fire roads that are in that area. And as we all know at this point, bicycles are not authorized on single tracks unless otherwise posted. And that trail's remained in that way. That trail's remained unauthorized for bikes since we went through this survey. The last one here, zone number 5, maintenance and erosion issues. They've been addressed. Sugarloaf to Shell Ridge Trail, asphalt improvements. They were actually conducted by PG&E. Sunburst entrance, hillsides, more maintenance issues due to the heavy rains. It's the Franco, this is at the end of Benham Court, I believe. We've since added a new drinking fountain, and that faucet and drinking fountain works perfectly fine now, and there was some erosion on those trails. The Foothills and Joaquin Ranch trails. Yeah. Same thing, just more maintenance that has already been completed. Barones to Mount Diablo, severe erosion, same thing. Ginder Gap, loop, these sections of the trail need to be graded. And we've made some recent improvements at the top of Ginder Gap. If you get a chance, go up there and look. You've heard some feedback from community members in the past about these bike ramps that we've installed. And so we have a bike ramp down near the Borges trail. We now have one at the top of Ginder Gap, and then we have another one at near Deer Lake. And we've been moving some of the fencing around, actually with the funding help from from our Walnut Creek Open Space Partners. We've added some fencing, moved some fencing around Deer Lake in order to protect one of their restoration projects, and we've added a bike ramp there as well. And keep in mind, these bike ramps are put in areas where we cattle graze, because what happens typically is a pedestrian gate will be tied open so that the bicycles don't have to stop, or the runners don't have to stop when they're moving through the area. And if they tie the gate open, then the cattle get out. And so we put in these bike ramps that act almost like cattle guards. And so a bike can just flow over this ramp, and the cattle won't go through the ramp, because they won't step in these bars. So this is an idea and a product that they've been doing in East Bay Regional for some time now, and now we're exploring that and using that more frequently here in Shell Ridge, and it works fine. There's people that are concerned that these are all fire roads. Bikes have access to these fire roads, but people are frustrated sometimes when they see more access for bicycles and benefits for bicycles. So you might hear more about that. The hazard trails is poor signage. We've worked through this with East Bay Regional. Twin Pond Loops Trail. There's a drinking fountain on private property, and the property owners, that property switched hands a couple times. I haven't met the new property owner, but the previous one wasn't interested in providing water. I should check with the new property owner there and see if they are. We can fix that up. And then Springs Trail at the bottom of Sugarloaf. Oh, so at the bottom end is Sugarloaf, which is closest to Livorna. There's a really wet, soggy area down there that we tried to make some drainage improvements on, and we just it's going to impact the neighborhood that's there if we make these drainage improvements. So we've been instructed to leave the area just kind of soggy through the winter months. We don't get a lot of, if the open space is that soggy, you're not getting much use out there anyway. So this area has not yet been improved. It's been discussed, but not improved. And that's it for the update for the 10-year trail improvement plan. This is my last slide. The Heather Farm new aquatic and community center. I talked about phase 1, which potentially could start this July. Phase 2 is going to start next year, early next year. And then phase 3 is the removal of Clark Swim Center and repurposing or reimagining what could go in that space. So I'm sharing this with you because council has identified this as a project that they want to vet as they go through the budget process and look to approve the capital budget near the end of this month. And right now there's been $250,000 identified to help move this project forward. The timing for this project, there's been drive to get started right away. Realistically, this project wouldn't start until 16, maybe even as early as 17, depending on bandwidth. I say 16, sorry. I'm dating myself. Sorry. 26 or spring of 27, sometime in there. It may start sooner. I'll look for direction and come back to the commission. But really, really fun project to be able to take that 3 acres and reimagine what that space might look like. So we don't get a lot of opportunities to take that size of a space and kind of reinvent it. We're losing a fair amount of green space with the addition of the new pool and the community center. And so to get 3 acres to repurpose would be a lot of fun, and it'd be great to see the park commission kind of leading that that drive as you guys have led a lot of these projects. So that's about it. And thank you for listening. I know it was a little long-winded there. Your action for tonight was just to hear the report and provide ask questions, provide some feedback.
Any questions from the commissioners?
I have a couple of just general comments, if you're willing to listen. Thank you, that was thorough, and I learned a lot, just kind of taking it all in. But if we're just looking for just general thoughts here, I think one of the things we could focus on and also make it maybe a little more cost-effective than a huge project like tunneling under YVR that would be great, but I don't know if that's in the cards, budgetary. But I do think that there's a lot of opportunity to make smaller improvements, like on the canal trails, and coming and going from Northgate to the downtown area, which a lot of people commute on as well. And if there's opportunities for like signage, mileage, shades, and just gussing up the trails to make them even more opportunistic for people to commute by to get to our downtown or what have you. I think that's something to focus on.
And I appreciate that you've already done some of the interpretive work and new signage and maps and things like that, but I actually really appreciate that when I'm particularly trying a new trail I haven't tried before. It's really nice. It is nice to know like where you are in relation to other things, and that would be really useful. You can do that. And I also thought it's also the kind of thing that you might get some Eagle Scouts to help you with, or other civic groups that might be interested in that kind of thing. I mean, that's anyway, some thoughts.
Thanks, Mike. A lot of information there, and good to hear that a lot of these, if not project lists, the summary list that you just went through of various kind of action items have over time gotten completed by staff within, I guess, the maintenance budget and those types of things. So that's all good news. I did have a question about the canal trail in terms of what governing body is responsible for what parts of it. And what I mean by that is there's a paved path, there's a V ditch where water, I think it's Contra Costa water, flows through, and then there's usually another side unpaved.
Yeah, it's a good question. The Bureau of Land owns the entire trail system, or that easement through there, and they have a contract with Contra Costa Water to oversee that area. And we have an agreement with Contra Costa Water to maintain the paved trail side of the irrigation ditch. So if the irrigation ditch is down the middle, we're on the paved side, and then they maintain the ditch and the service road side. Does that make sense?
So the bottom of the V is where the line is drawn. Is that what you're saying?
So on the
Drainage ditch?
it's not quite the bottom. They're responsible for the whole drainage ditch.
Oh, okay.
And about 2 feet up from that, because that's kind of where their concrete for that V ditch ties into. So we would do the paved trail down about 2 feet. They'd pick up the other 2 feet, the ditch, and then the service road.
All right. And the types of improvements you're talking about in terms of bench and shade, that type of thing, are all within that area that the city is responsible for.
Yeah, we would certainly check in as partners and make sure that it was, I know it's within the agreement, or I wouldn't have brought it to your attention. Just make sure I check in with them, let them know in advance of what we're going to be doing, potentially installing some signage and some benches, and I think shade in certain opportunities would be beneficial. You know, we often call our trail system like a linear park, and we've made such great progress in the open space in terms of the maintenance. A lot of the maintenance challenges being not being as intense as they were in the past, and so we're getting a little bit more time to maybe make some improvements in some of these other areas, and that's kind of the push behind this recommendation.
Okay. The canal path seems to be an area where the use of electronic bikes, bicycles, traffic safety at the crossings all come to a head, so to speak. I've noticed, because I live in an area where the canal goes through, that drivers take different approaches to the trail crossings. And there are a lot of blind spots for drivers as they approach the trail crossings. And some drivers slow down, others just speed through as if there's nothing there. And bicycles can get caught in the crunch. So can people too, for that matter. Runners, for instance, where there's a little bit more speed than a walker, where you have a little bit better reaction time. But a lot of challenges through the neighborhood, more so with the speed of e-bikes and things going through there as well. So I'm not sure what our role is in that, but I just wanted to note it.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And it all falls within Public Works, not necessarily in the Parks and Open Space, but I can, talk to the traffic engineering team and have them take a look at some of these areas as they're doing throughout the city. Make sure we're focused maybe, or ask them to focus a little bit more on some of these trail crossings.
Mike, thanks for the update. I'm sorry, are you, okay. Thanks for the update on the 10-year plan. It's a lot of information, and I'm wondering if we could have an opportunity to kind of walk some of the sites. And I know these projects are kind of funding dependent, and if we could think about opportunities to leverage funding and prioritize the needs of these projects. I know it's, so this 10-year plan carries us through 2028, so we're got 3 more years. So if we could, kind of look at the sites and look at the funding and leverage with NGOs on the funding and resources, I think that will be great.
A field trip.
Yes.
Always fun.
Yeah,
always
an outreach opportunity too.
Yeah.
All right. Any other comments from the commissioners? Does any member of the public wish to provide public comments at this time on the presentation? Okay. All right. Hearing none. Anything else?
Nope.
Comments?
That's it. I think your feedback is pretty clear, and appreciate it. I'll come back in the future with a better update. Look, I think the focus right now will probably be improvements to the canal trail, and maybe the additions of some interpretive signage, and then we'll organize a field trip, and maybe we can help reprioritize some of the other opportunities.
Sounds great.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. The next item is PRO's Commissioners Report. Any Commissioners Report?
I have a report. So I'm the liaison with the Senior Club, for Walnut Creek. And at the last meeting, I raised the information about the Civic Park and Walden Park upgrades that are being planned. And as I predicted and had already gotten some feedback from Mike, they're very concerned about how long this project will take and kind of where is the staging going to be. And even though their back parking lot might be free, they all, that is not enough parking for many, many, many of the events there, right? So, I mean, they do use the other areas for parking. So I'm just wondering if you really, I mean, it was usually up to the contractor to stage, but I don't know, you designate some areas for them and so.
Yeah, I mean, potentially, what would be the parking lot closest to Park Place? So I guess that would be the northwest side, basically behind the Studio H building. We could potentially use that as a laydown area, but it's a great comment from the senior group. There's, with the impact coming to Heather Farm, the vast majority of those events are going to now start taking place at at Civic Park. And so we're going to have to do a really good job coordinating because, they don't do these playground projects in a couple weeks. They're typically a couple months. So it's good feedback, and it's something we're going to have to coordinate with the seniors, but also coordinate with the park users and the event holders as well.
And another comment I've heard a couple times from them, the current chair, actually, president, Fred, he's mentioned a couple times that they're interested in, once the new community center is built, in moving many of their activities there because the parking is a lot of the concern. Plus, of course, it'll be a very, really, nice facility. But anyway, so I know that it may be that parking's sort of an issue in general. It seems like from what I've picked up, and I don't know if you agree with that, but yeah. So.
Yeah, it can definitely be a challenge. When they put in the library, the underground library, the underground garage at the library, the idea was that maybe more of them would use it. It's just not convenient, right?
They did ask about that, and they're aware that that's available. But you're right, plus you have to pay, I think.
You do, yeah,
right, which is different. So. Yeah, and then the ones who are involved in the Creekers were very interested in when the new fields are going to be done.
Oh, early November is the plan. Yes.
I was able to tell him, give him the update that you'd given us, which is everything's on schedule, probably in the fall.
You can always give him Commissioner Oler's phone number and have him, yes.
Maybe we could convert to a sandlot league where we're just playing the dirt.
So I'm the liaison with the Walnut Creek Open Space Foundation, and I've had the pleasure of joining their monthly board meetings and learning a lot about the activities at the foundation. I happened to join on one of their projects in May. Was it May? Last month, yeah, where we did the oak seedling project off of Sutherland Drive, and it was great. We were joined by 2 high school seniors from Northgate, the chairman from the board members, and volunteers. So I just want to put it out there. If you're a Walnut Creek resident, or you don't even have to be a Walnut Creek resident, if you're interested in working in the open space, reach out. We had a lot of fun, and we saw these birdhouses built by local Eagle Scouts. We saw we opened it, saw the bird nest. So it's really seeing, how the communities, or, different facets of communities, youth, volunteers, senior volunteers, and all coming together to protect the open space in Walnut Creek. So that was very enjoyable for me. Right. Next is staff reports. Do we have any staff reports?
I have no reports. I'm talked out for the evening, yes.
All right. So there it comes to the conclusion of the meeting. This concludes the June 2nd, 2025 Pros Commission meeting. We're adjourned to the August 4th, 2025 scheduled meeting. Meeting is adjourned.